divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody. Uh-oh, feedback. Welcome to Sacred Matrix. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Deborah DeFranco. You're listening to Revolution Radio Studio B, and our guest is Ann Eisenhower, and this is part 3 of an extensive interview that we're doing with Jean. So she is a multi-dimensional being like us all in a human body, slowly becoming conscious of her lifelong mind control, beginning at birth, and her interdimensional family who helped her through this. She is an author, artist, activist, educator, intuitive, transpersonal hypnotherapist, and pastoral counselor. Though she has taken a 15-year break from that work, she's exploring possibilities for offering that help again. In our first 2 interviews, Jean shared her other dimensional and mind control experiences from childhood, 2 marriages, and her first few years as a desert hermit. In our last interview, she discovered she has implants and lacerations in her vagina. The greatest number of anomalous events happened in Jean's 6 hermit years, not only the vaginal lacerations and implant, but electronic attacks at the Judi Bari v. versus FBI trial, 13 UFOs of different types being taken up into the sky, reptoids and reptilians, home break-ins while immobilized, underground base, interview with Whitley, Strieber, and Jim Mars, and seeing in the dark, and more. So we're going to go through, there's a whole list of things we're going to cover today. Hopefully we can get through most of it today on aquarianradio.com. So, Sash, would you like to say anything before we bring on Ann Eisenhower?
Ann, is what you share is part of something that we've been getting a long time, and I'm wondering why some people, why is it that some people are so freaked and so hostile? First of all, to extraterrestrials, but second of all, to their neighbors that have different skin color and so forth. And why is it that I feel so differently? And I got it. It's like, I'm an anthropologist, and what we do is we learn from other people instead of impress them that we're higher than, and they're going to evolve to be as cool as we are. And it's this, and that we, as an anthropologist, we don't think that necessarily just because you got better technology that you're more spiritually advanced, and that and so that when you give up our ethnocentrism, then we can learn from everybody. The more we learn, and it's part of sharing in a more coherent way. And I think that your story illustrates that, as my little preface.
And I so agree with you. It really does force us to reconsider our entire, worldview. We must do that, or we just can't handle it at all. And we get hostile. And I think that's why I can laugh, is because I've let go of my old worldview and I'm allowing myself to see what I see.
Excellent. So when we spoke somewhere last day or so, you wanted to kind of recap some of the things that you missed. You said, remind me to tell you to go over some of the things that you missed.
I don't know if we can do that right now. I did not gather that together because I saw that I'd missed so much that it might be a whole show on its own. So I thought, we did the my last 40 years well enough, and we'll move forward for today. I think we should.
Jean, I want to tell you something really interesting. In the David Viscott method, after you have your session with your therapist, he asks you to go home and write down all the things that you didn't share, and that I'm sure the things you skipped are treasures.
You're right, and I do have a wonderful list, but like I said, it was so extensive it would be an entire show on its own. So I just set it aside so that we could keep moving forward, and let's do another show, and we'll talk about all the things that I forgot.
Cool.
That'd be great.
Excellent.
Because I don't have it in front of me right now, and it's just too much. Let's talk about the Hermit Years, because these are the years where the most incredible stuff happened, and it was all the alien and UFO stuff for 6 years. And as soon as that was over, life got it was continued weird, but it was different. These are the 6 years of UFOs and aliens. So, yeah, I'm prepared to talk about those.
Let's go over that. If you want to. Okay, the list you have.
First, it starts with an LSD trip. Let me tell you, because it set the stage, it actually helped me so much I can't believe it. I never did LSD. Well, we think it's Skype is just going to keep doing that to us, but I'll start again. When I first went out there, I had never done LSD in my life. I had always been interested, but I had never done. A friend gave me a dose, and so I did. And I don't know how I could have handled what came if I hadn't had this LSD vision in the very beginning. What I saw was as if you did a big zoom close up on a piece of yarn. And so a yarn is a bunch of smaller yarns spun around each other. And each of those smaller yarns are also spun, and they're a kind of a combed out but sort of chaotic mix of tiny, tiny fibers all wrapped around each other. And I zoomed in so close that I picked out like one little yarn, and I identified with that. And in that moment, I realized that I could blame nobody for the stuff I was going through. At this time, all I knew was I had in childhood and sexual abuse, and I didn't know anything else. And the cultural thing was to sue your parents if you thought they had anything to do with it, and there was lots of blame that was just part of the culture at that time. And so I was wondering whether, and I think there was even encouragement, to do something like this. But I just saw that we're all together, and this larger dynamic that we are in, this spiraling yarn, just means that you just can't blame the fiber in front of you. We're all just caught in this, and there's no blame. And so because there's no blame, you need to just let go of your hostility and your anger and just say, what do I do about it now? Now, it took me like 18 months after I learned I'd been mind controlled to get over absolute terror. But eventually I did learn to be happy and to just take the focus off of other people and just put it on me and say, what can I do about this? And I think that was the message that I got that really, really helped me tolerate the worldview shattering events that I would continue to have for the next 6 years. Well, actually forever, but 6 years as a hermit. You asked me before about animal experiences, and I just wasn't able to go there at that time.
We got that. Okay. Was there any comment on the LSD visions of? Sasha, you have any comments or feedback on that? Because we've done LSD and LSD psychotherapy, which is very powerful.
And don't let me forget, I have a second vision.
Yeah. Sasha studied with Stan Groff for about 10 years or something. And Stan Groff created LSD psychotherapy. So what would you like to say, Sasha?
I'm fascinated. Please go ahead.
Okay, and I almost forgot. I have a second LSD vision. So that was making me feel all wonderful and fuzzy and warm with the world, like relax, settle down, let go of your anger. And then I had just the most incredible, horrible experience, but I needed to know this. Mm-hmm. I felt like a child, and I felt like a helmet was being put over my head. And the chin strap was being drawn across, and just before they hooked it, I suddenly felt that there was something like a half a tennis ball on one side, so that when they pushed it over and locked it, it pushed my jaw sideways, radically out of joint. And I was in so much pain that I could not swallow. And I almost started to choke on saliva because my tongue couldn't move in its natural way to swallow. And so I quickly I was sitting on my bed and I put my face down in front of me, but the pain was so incredible. I started doing this spastic bucking like a horse, with my face planted on the bed and my body just bucking in pain. And I was terrified that if this didn't stop really soon, and if I tried to ever sit up, I thought I would either drown or something because I just couldn't swallow. So I'm just copiously, salivating into the bed and bucking around. It seemed like forever. It was probably 5 seconds. And then somebody unhooked the strap and I sat up, and I was just terrified to even try to swallow at that point because I was afraid that it might come back again. And it didn't, and I just was like massaging my jaw and happy to swallow again, and flipping in shock over what this means, because I knew that I had amnesia, and why in the world would anybody torture me like that? I had not learned about mind control yet. That was 8 years later that I would learn. But at this point, it was a memory that I could never forget, but I was able to just push it away for a little while and say, well, that's a mystery. It doesn't make any sense. So therefore, you don't have to think about it. 8 years later, I would totally understand it when I started reading about mind control. But anyway, those two
Was that
visions that
came to try to split you? Is that something that...
I think that they just did it flat out for torture. I think the switching, when they want to create a new personality and program it, they do something much more controllable than that. Like electroshock is super easy. You're sitting in a chair, they shock you, they give you your messages, and then they shock you again. It's just neat and easy. That, I think, was just punishment torture to ensure obedience in the future. All they'd have to do is say, hey, we'll put that helmet on you, and you're like, nope, I'll do whatever you say. And so I think that's what the helmet was about.
If you had a fantasy of how you might have been disobedient, what do you have any thought about your disobedience?
I know that I kind of had attitudes that I don't want to do things that I don't want to do, and I'm not, and so I can imagine that I might. Well, they say that all the kids in mind control, but I do have one memory of having run away one time. And I don't know if they actually let me think I was running away because they wanted to chase me, or if I actually did escape. It kind of seems unlikely, doesn't it? I don't know what I might have done.
When there's two things like that, it's usually partially both.
Yeah.
We've heard how they let people. That's kind of a form of torture. They let you think you're getting away, and then you get to the end and you think you escaped, and then it's like, they just take you back.
Yeah.
Part of their...
Yeah. Well, my running away was a lifetime memory that I had all my life. I dreamt that I was running away, and I believe I was drugged because I felt like I was running in slow motion and I could barely lift my legs. So I was probably drugged, and I was running across it seemed to be a plowed field with airplanes in the distance on a tarmac. So I think it was like an Air Force base. And I've got the other Air Force base memory. And I had that memory my entire life until I was 41 years old. And I went to the therapist, and I told you how I said, I've had all these problems. Son has cancer, getting divorced, blah, 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 blah. And then the words that I didn't intend to say, and it didn't even cross my rational brain. They just came out my mouth. And I think I was sexually abused as a child. And then I started doing my therapy. I never had that nightmare again. So I'm quite sure that running away and all that was related.
Wow, interesting. Sash, anything?
Yeah, well, it's like I wonder when I thought of what kind of sexual abuse would give that kind of imagery, but I don't want to lead that. I did get images, but I'm not going to tell you what they are.
We'll just continue.
Yeah. I mean, we can speculate, but there's so many other. We know. I've got things I know to share. So, should we talk about, like, I was having shamanic experiences that would begin during the my hermit years. Like, I had experiences with ravens and rattlesnakes, and a bear that came to the house, and all of
Wait,
them.
can we stay with this? So, if there was a larger purpose, or if you had created this torture of your jaw for your own growth and evolution, what's that? What's the message? What's that all about? Why are you being tortured?
I think the message is you need to be obedient to these people. And I'm still getting that message today, like any day. I can just go back through my journal, and there's these messages that I get in different ways. It's like, you're ours, you're in, resistance is futile. It's like that stuff is coming to me all the time.
So it somehow implies that you've got this rebel that does resist.
I guess I do. Even though I am, like, I used to call myself the most obedient child I ever knew. When I would look back at my childhood, all the times that I obeyed when I did not want to. But we've all got our limits.
You bet.
What made you obey?
Well, torture.
So you had these memories of torture, and so you obeyed just automatically. To who were you obeying? Your parents, or?
I think it was the controllers. I mean, I think it was all of them. I think my parents were trained to be very strict with me, and the Mormons who came into our life when I was a child. I just assume, because I remember leaving children's church being like almost out of my body with rage. I don't know why, no memory, but I remember being out of my body with rage and saying, I'm never going back there again. And then the controllers, I mean, if you just read about mind control,
Wow.
it's just totally standard. It's what they do. Torture is the way that they create alternate personalities.
Right.
And they do certain kinds, like electroshock, but they can't do that too often. They're going to hurt kids' hearts. And I do have a bad heart. I had in 7th grade, I was the slowest of all. We had 90 girls in the 7th grade, and I was the slowest. We all ran around the track, and I was the last one. So I've always had heart problems. So I think I got a lot of electroshock, but they can't do too much of that. And so pretty much what the researchers say is they do different kinds of torture that won't leave a mark on the body. It's dislocate joints, it's cold, it's hunger, it's terror. Those are electroshock and sometimes drugs. And but I think they mix it up probably for testing purposes. And anyway, that's what they do.
They do. So,
And I'm not remembering all of that, but
right.
I've got a few little memories that tag into what other researchers say is standard practice. And they're little memories that can't be mistaken for anything else.
Did you ever fight back?
I don't know. I remember very little. I ran away that one time, but I just remember my intake, and I remember waking up at home or being brought home in one case, and being, left off. But I don't. And I remember drawing or painting one painting, but I remember I was standing at an easel. We're going back to childhood again, but standing at an easel, told to paint. And I'm looking around, but I just was not, I don't know, just didn't know what to do. And the teacher says, paint. And I just looked at her and said, I don't know what to paint. So I guess I was being a little bit stubborn there. And she says, paint a tree. And I just got it. I painted this tree that's bent over in the wind, and the wind is blowing by, and it's black wind, and a leaf is blowing by, and it's a black leaf, and everything is edged in black. That was my tree. I still have that painting. I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Up in the tree.
Mm-hmm.
What would you feel like if you were that tree?
Well, battered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember an interesting. I remember one other story that was kind of attached to that one, and that was being told at the teachers, parent-teacher conference, going to the school with my mom, and having the teacher tell my mom that my painting was hung on the principal's office wall and to go down and see it. So I walked down the hallway, and that hurts my feelings by taking my picture off the wall. I was so glad he'd wanted my picture. He takes it off the wall and he hands it to my mother, and I don't know what she says. And I just remember being so disappointed. I wanted my picture with the principal. So we walk back, and I know that my mom is she's not happy. She's really not happy. And when I look at it now, I totally get it. That,
So
it was great art therapy. It was very indicative of my state of mind.
Yeah, so the principal recognized that this was a painting of a deeply disturbed person.
Yeah.
Keep getting abused, and
I hope he recognized it. Mm-hmm.
Wow. But he didn't rescue you.
Apparently not.
Wow. So you're out in the desert, and you have all these. What do you mean by these animal experiences? Animals are in the desert. So what was magical about it? What was different?
Well, I had just had experiences that were really unusual. Like, I've actually read about these conventions at a time, and it's known to happen, but it's pretty rare. And I saw one of those one time. I was out wandering on my land, and it was at sunset, and I was coming back toward the house. I was standing maybe 20, 30 feet away from the house, and I heard the sound, and I looked above me, and here are like an unusual number of ravens, and they're flying pretty close together, and they're going through as if there was a doorway between me and the house. And I'm surprised that they're in this order, and they're all going together toward the mountains. And then I look out from where they're coming from, and there's more and more and more, and I adjust my eyes, and there are hundreds of them, and they're all coming from the northwest, and all of them funnel into this narrow space in the sky about, I don't know how high it was, maybe 50 feet up there. And it's as if there's this narrow space between me and the house. And so they go through that narrow space, and then right after passing through that space, they turn south, go toward the oak trees and the creek, and then disappearing behind the trees. And I watched hundreds of them go by. And then at the very end, one raven looped in toward, and he starts flying due west. And I was facing due west at the time. And he's doing what I've seen hawks do quite a few times. Other people say, never happened to me, but I see it all the time, actually. This raven went down, and he got between me and the sun, and he flies back and forth across in the air, across my body, and then he finishes, and he goes behind the oak trees with the other ravens. So things like that started happening to me, and we're talking about aliens and UFOs, so I just want to set this as a setting that I was having these wonderful spiritual experiences, which I believe are messages, and I just took it as a sign that somebody out there is helping me, and I just felt really grateful, and things like that just kept happening.
I wonder if we might get a better connection if you quickly hang up and just click back on again, because it keeps going out and in.
Well, since Deborah said she thought it was Skype, I don't know if it'll make a difference, but I can try. If I hang up, should Deborah recall me?
Deborah, are you there?
No, she should just rejoin the call.
Yeah, you're going to get her. So
Yeah,
hang up.
there'll be a green button there on the chat. Just press it and try to rejoin it.
Okay, after I hang up right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it's very hard to hear you.
Okay, we're testing this. We hope this works. We're sorry that we're having audio problems, but we've got a lot of information to cover here. We want to be able to hear Jean. So hopefully she can get back in. All right. How you doing, Deborah? How's the weather?
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, nice and warm.
So if we're what you were seeing, was it in response to you? Did you get a sense that there was an interaction between you and what you were seeing?
I'm sorry that I'm having trouble reconnecting and getting my sound proper.
Okay, well, we hear you fine.
Can you hear me fine? Okay.
We hear you fine. Do you want to try it one more time?
No, because it has to do with my using my speaker on the phone, and if you can hear me fine, we'll just stay here, okay?
Okay, and I guess you could push come to shove, just use the don't use the speaker, just hold it to your ear, although this is like 2 hours of holding it to your ear.
Right, and I don't know how to access that in Zoom, so we got what we got.
We got what we got. Okay, so then in your animal experiences, it says first rattlesnake. What was going on with the rattlesnake?
I had a whole year of rattlesnake experiences. And when I left that land, 3 mating rattlesnakes kind of were near me. It was really amazing. I was cleaning up the land, but anyway, so rattlesnakes just were happening a lot. The very first experience was pretty interesting. I'd been in the city with my partner at the time, and he had decided he was going to see if he could stand living with me. He really liked the city and just didn't know if he could handle being out in the country. So we come out, and wouldn't you know, there's a rattlesnake near the front door. So I almost stepped on it, but I just thought it was a nice sign because I'd been having all these other wonderful signs. Every time I saw something amazing happen, it was just great. It was a blessing. So I see this rattlesnake, and I'm like, wow, that's really powerful. What does that mean? And I thought, well, practically speaking, it means I can never walk out the door without being really conscious of where I go. That was my most recent prayer. I had just been praying, Spirit, I'm all the time recognizing that I'm stupidly not paying attention to things. Help me. I'm praying for greater consciousness. I don't know how, but I need greater consciousness. And then a snake shows up at my door. That is perfect. So I was really pretty jazzed by it. And so my boyfriend was not jazzed by it at all. So yeah, so the next night I go out to do what I always do. Sit on the right next to the front door. There's a futon sofa facing west, and I would sit every single sunset and watch the sun go down, and that would be like the end of my day. And it would just be a time to meditate and be happy. And so I sat on my sofa, and my boyfriend comes out, and he stoops down and he looks underneath it, and he backs up with this look of alarm on his face. He goes, "It's right underneath you." And I'm like, cool. And he does not think it's cool. And so we have this big argument, and I finally get him to stand like 25 feet away. He can stoop down so he can watch. But I said, I'm just going to sit here for a little while and meditate. And so I did. I went into this meditation, and I felt the snake energy, which is straight beneath me. I felt it like rise right up into me. And I had a lot of reactions. One of them was this very silly response of, oh my goodness, a spirit animal I actually feel its energy inside me. I'm so happy. I want to hug somebody. And the snake says, I'm not a huggy teacher. And then I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then it says, don't waste any time with apologies. Yes, I'm going to help you learn consciousness, and, quit being so silly. I don't know. It might have said more. It's in my book. But I was honored by that. Absolutely honored that spirit was going to work through these animals to teach me consciousness, and I was grateful, and I just took it at that. And so I came out of my meditation, and I told my man that it's all cool, and he's like, "Well, you get off that sofa now." and I don't know how long I sat out there just enjoying the moment, but anyway, I had lots of nice experiences like that with animals that all seemed to come at a time that it was teaching me a lesson. And there's books on indigenous meanings to different animals, and I think it's a lot like many things, like dreams, that whatever they mean to you is what they mean to you. But sometimes there's the collective conscious meanings to things, and I just have always enjoyed them and appreciated them, and just feel really grateful when they happen, and they still do.
What you describe of energy going through you, and you feel, it's like a Kundalini experience. It's the exact same thing that we do in yoga all the time.
Yeah. And the snake, of course, is oh man, it's an emblem that has been with us throughout time.
Right.
Yeah, snakes are being held by many of the gods and goddesses, especially goddesses, I think. But it's not a thing I've studied. I've just kind of like noticed it, and I'm just willing to accept whatever, especially since it's been good for me. They have all brought meaningful information and evolution for me, I felt.
In the ancient Sumerian, when Enki arrived and